When we study subjects in silos, we miss out on important insights. When we look at subjects in totality, and when we apply our learning from one subject to the other, we see the magic happening. This is what Sangeeth Varghese and his son's new book, Hidden Links: How Random Historical Events Shaped Our World, which is published by Penguin, is all about. And as we prepare to delve into our conversation on the topic at hand, here is an exciting twist. Sangeeth, please get ready for a rapid fire round of random words, and I will mention a few. And I would love to hear the first thing that comes to your mind in response without thinking much. And let's dive right in. Okay, here comes my first word: curious.
Curiosity connects the world.
Invention.
Thomas Alva Edison.
Future.
Bright.
Book.
Hidden Links.
Movie.
Anything to do with future. Clairvoyance.
Food.
What my wife makes.
Place.
The place where I come from, Kerala.
Name.
Name is interesting. Hashem. It's a Hebrew word which means the name.
New learning. Animal.
Animal, a horse. Everything started with a horse, in fact, in history. A lot of history is connected to horses.
And the last one is world.
World.
Yeah.
World is all connected. Connected in more ways than we can imagine.
Interesting. And I loved your responses. Thanks for participating so sportively, Sangeeth. Really appreciate it. And folks, welcome to the Guiding Voice podcast series, where we embark on transformative conversations for a better future. I'm your host, Naveen Samala, dedicated to making the world a better place through valuable discussions that add value to your life and to your career. Thank you so much for tuning in. And Sangeeth, hearty welcome to the Guiding Voice. And I'm super excited to have you join as a guest in today's conversation.
Thank you, Naveen. And I look forward to this exciting time with you and all our audience.
Absolutely pleased to have you. And let's get started. And as always, I start with this question just to understand your success mantra. So Sangeeth requests you to share the top 3 things that have attributed to your success so far.
The top 3 things. So I would say luck is the most important thing. We discount a lot of luck in our lives. The first, starting with the genetic luck itself, the genetic lottery itself, where we are born, in what kind of family which we are born. All those kind of decides what we become, right?
Yeah.
If I were not born in that particular place, in the particular family, I might have been completely different. So luck is probably 99% of what I am, what little I've been able to do. The second one, I would say it's about changing the game. So whenever I thought that I'm kind of plateauing, so at some point of time, I started up my career as the chief of staff for Mukesh Ambani at some point of time.
Wow.
At some point of time, I thought that my learning was plateauing, and I changed the game. And went back to study at the London School of Economics, went back to acquiring knowledge part of it, worked in the UN for about a couple of years, came back to India. Right? So it has been a consistently I've been changing the game. The third part, I think it is also about connecting the unconnected, right? So if you end up seeing something which is unconnected, getting excited about things which are big, right? Figuring out if there is which we can do about. That's what, if you can call it mantra. I don't think whether you can call it mantra or not, but yeah.
I see a different perspective and a diverse thought process here, and it is so interesting and intriguing at the same time. And because you're trying to establish connections between the unconnected, that is seeing the world through a different lens altogether. And I think that might have led to the writing of your book, Hidden Links. So I would like to understand the inspiration behind your book and how your son Zach's passion for history ignited your journey into investigating historical events through a strategic planning lens.
Interesting. So my son, Zach Sangeeth, he authored a couple of books earlier, right? His World History in 3 points and More World History in 3 points, right? So his passion for history started very serendipitously when he saw a picture of the Mona Lisa. And then he got interested in Mona Lisa, and then to Leonardo da Vinci, and then to Renaissance, and then to the history of the world. That's how he started out. Every time he learned something in history, so this was during the COVID time, 2020, when he did not have school. So he would shut himself up in a room, study throughout the day a particular topic. And in the evening, we would go out for a walk around the campus. And at that particular point of time, he would offload whatever he has learned until that point of time. Humongous amount of historical facts, he would end up offloading it onto me. And for me, history was one of my interests. It was not the interest as he was having, right? So I'm interested in sociology. I'm interested in political science. I'm interested in psychology, right? This was one of the things which I'm interested in at that point of time. And but my core interest or my core profession or the craft which I specialize in is strategic planning. And that's what I've been doing throughout my life. And as human beings, what really happens is that everybody got a lens, right, which we look at things. Some people look at things through a religious lens. Yeah. Some people look at it from the family they have come from. Some people look at it so through the craft which they have. An engineer would always look at problems as engineering problems. A lawyer would look at it as a legal problem. So I looked at things from a strategic point angle. Strategic point angle is fairly simple, as in what it really means in a strategic planning is that there are a lot of smaller parts. And then how do you really accumulate all the parts and form the big picture? That's what strategy is all about, right? So it could be a political angle, it could be an economic angle, social angle, legal angle, environment angle. So how do you really pull all those things together and form something which is bigger than the sum of its parts is what strategic planning is all about. How do you connect? So when Zach was offloading all the historical information onto me, I started from a very novice angle, from a very unbiased angle, from a very amateur angle, from a very student angle. When I looked at things, I saw that there are some connections. He's talking about unconnected things. He's talking about, say, for example, an Ottoman Empire one day, and then another day he's talking about a Silk Road. In another day he's talking about Mughals, and or another day he's talking about Cholas and Cheras and Pandyas. And I'm thinking, there is some connection. Why are you not seeing it? So that's where we started out from. And then we started fleshing out some of these threads. We call it as threads. We started fleshing out some of these threads. Is it for real? Are the connections for real? Or is it something which I'm just imagining in my mind? So we started fleshing it out. And then we thought that, okay, it's exciting enough to probably have a book or have an essay. So that's where it started out from.
If I may ask, how old is Zach?
Zach is 12 years. He goes to the 7th grade.
Oh my God. And you guys
probably the next conversation probably the next conversation you should have with him. He can hold the fortress on his.
Absolutely. I would love to host him because he will become the youngest speaker on my show. So far, it's been 14-year-old was the youngest so far. So we would definitely love to have Zach on the show. Sangeeth, this is quite interesting because I'm learning a lot through this conversation as well. And as a strategic planner and a leadership thinker, how did your unique perspective contribute to uncovering these hidden patterns and connections between seemingly unrelated historical events? Because I don't think people would have that particular thought process, okay, how to establish those kind of connections and connecting the dots. You have done it so well.
So see, strategic planning in itself sounds like a funky word, a fad word kind of a thing. But essentially, like I mentioned earlier, it's actually a fairly simple thing. As in, how do you really simplify things? How do you really simplify complexities? How do you really bring together the elements? That's what strategic planning is all about, right? So you end up using multiple tools for, right, data-centric tools for planning, right? But the basic tool in everything is very simple. It's about when you have a large data set, which is with you, which is easily available as far as corporates are concerned, right? So data set on sales or marketing or anything like that. So when you have a large data set, what's the first thing which you need to do? You need to put it down on paper. You need to enter it onto an Excel sheet. You need to enter it onto something which can analyze it. That's the first and the basic step, which is what actually we did.
Okay.
When we start writing, right? So what I did is that first put down all the dates and the events onto a sheet of paper. Even before thinking about what are the kind of tools which we need to start applying. That's when the magic started happening, Naveen, because I started putting it down onto a sheet of paper. Say, for example, I'll give you an example. Around 2500, 3000 BCE, there were a few civilizations which started to rise up. It included, say, the Indus Valley civilization in South Asia, Sumer in the Middle East. Then there was a civilization called the Minoan civilization in the Greece, in Greece. Then there is the Egyptian civilization, the old kingdom of the Egyptian civilization. All of them started rising up during this particular period of time. And all of them, there's a very interesting aspect about all of them. All of them happen to be agrarian societies. Indus Valley, because it is near the river Indus. Sumer, because it's on the banks of Euphrates and Tigris. Egypt on the Nile. And Minoan, because it's a seashore. All of them happen to be agrarian societies. And agrarian societies have got a very interesting point to them, that unlike the industrial societies, in an agrarian society, it is typically a small farm. And in a small farm, it is not just men who work, women also work exactly the same way. Right? It's not just the men who end up going for work, right? Women also help in sowing the seeds. Women also help in harvesting, in reaping, in making the grains, going and selling. It's not a men's forte. So all these civilizations, whether it is the Indus Valley, whether it is Sumerian civilization, whether it is the Egyptian, whether it is the Minoan of Crete, all of them happen to be feminist societies in some way, matriarchal societies in some way, or at least they gave equal importance to men and women, if not matriarchal, at least equal importance part of it. Excellent part. And we see all these civilizations flourishing. They all flourished by the time it was around 2200 BCE. They were all at the pinnacle. The Minoans of Crete were building humongous palaces in acres and acres of land. Here is the Indus Valley civilization with the greatest plumbing which the world has seen at that point of time. Sumerian civilization, developing language. Egyptian, yes, of course, going ahead and building some of the greatest monuments which the world has seen. Then something interesting happens. So far, so good. So I put it down on paper, and surprisingly, I see all of them rise at the same time. Then again, surprisingly, I see that around 1700 BCE, all of them fall at exactly the same time. Fantastic, right? If I just, all what I've done is that just putting it down on a piece of paper, what happened from 3000 BCE until 1 CE, and here are some information coming in, all of them rising at the same time, all of them falling down at the same time. Then what we do is that then as a planner, a strategic planner, I start asking a question. Why it fell? Yes. There is some reason for its fall. What exactly resulted in the fall? Then when I study, and that's a very interesting one, as in why it fell is because of a climate crisis. There was a particular climate crisis at that point of time. And because of the climate crisis, all of the civilizations started falling in. So an Indus River started drying up. There were famines. There was a volcanic eruption in Greek islands. The Sumerian Euphrates Tigris started drying up. In the Nile River, there was a lack of precipitation. River was not reaching them. All of them started falling at the same time. But then there is a twist in the story. This climate crisis continued for about 200, 300 years. New civilizations started coming up. the place of the civilization. So in India, there arose, say, the Vedic civilization. In Greece arose another civilization in the place of Minoan civilization, which is called the Mycenaean civilization. In Egypt, it was the New Kingdom which arose. In Sumer, there was the Hurrian kingdom of Mitanni which arose. So new kingdoms started rising up. This is where I end the story. And in every single one of the civilization, the new civilization, it was no longer men equal to women. It was no longer life as usual. It was a very different society which rose up in the ruins of the earlier society. And therein hangs a tale which we explore in one of the chapters. What happened to all those women equal to men societies? What happened to all those matriarchal societies? And why do we live in a sexist world? Why do we live in a patriarchal world? Why do we live in a misogynist world? What happened during that climate crisis when older civilizations were destroyed and newer one arose? What is that few years of climate crisis? What is a secret which it is hiding?
It's as if like I have time traveled back to those civilizations. So beautifully put through. Sangeeth, your book highlights the Fountainhead epoch as a significant era, connecting various topics. So could you elaborate on this pivotal period and its role in shaping these multiple aspects of the history?
Definitely, Naveen. So this is the book. This is the book which I'm talking about, right? Yeah. So in the one of the first chapters of the book happens to be the Fountainhead epoch. So this is what I said when I said that, okay, I put it down on a sheet of paper. This is what I meant. You end up putting down the dates and all those kind of stuff onto a piece of paper, and then you figure out how exactly the various things pan out. It is data heavy, but at the same time, you end up having illustrations and you end up having those infographics which end up simplifying the stuff, right? So coming back to the stuff, the Fountainhead epoch, human beings started evolving about 300,000 years back on the Earth. About 1,000 to 12,000 years back, they started settling down in terms of agrarian societies. And like I mentioned earlier, several large flourishing civilizations started coming up, say, and one of those ancient civilizations, whether it is the Indus Valley, whether it is the Minoans of the Crete, Egyptian, all those things which I mentioned, right? So they all started coming up in about 2,700, 3,000 BCE kind of a thing. And we have progressed further, right? We are right now sitting in 2023, right? So we have progressed further. But one thing which I noticed is that all the progress which we have made as human beings, whether it is in terms of religion, whether in terms of philosophy, whether in terms of science, whether in terms of history, archaeology, architecture, you name it, everything, the seeds of it was sown in a very short time period, which was 600 to 300 BCE. In 300 years, every single thing which you see in the world today, for example, religions, Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, Jainism, all of them started in between 600 to 300 BCE. A reformation of religions, reformation of Hinduism, reformation of Buddhism happened during that particular period of time. Right? United geography, say united India came up during that particular period of time under whether it is under Magadha Empire or whether it is under the Maurya Empire. Until that time, India was not a contiguous mass. So that was a time when India became a united India. Incidentally, China became united in exactly the same time period. Greeks became united in exactly the same time period. Persia or the Middle East became united in exactly the same time period, right? So united world concept came up during the same time period. Statecraft, bureaucracy, thinkings like Zoroastrianism or legalism and all those kind of things came up during the same time period, or Confucianism came up during the same time period. Aristotle ended up ensuring that you are studying biology, zoology, right? Or whether it is other subjects like history, archaeology, architecture, engineering, every single thing came exactly which we are talking about, the Fountainhead epoch. So that's why we call it as a Fountainhead epoch, 600 to 300 BC, just 300 years. Why it happened? Why exactly 600 to 300 BCE? That's another great story in itself. Again, when we map it on and use a strategic planning tool, we again incidentally see a climate crisis. Two back-to-back climate crises which happened in the world. And one of them lasting until 600 BCE, which wiped out all the civilization. And then from the ruins of it arose the new ones. The Greek civilization and the Roman civilization and the new Indian civilizations, new Indian empires and the new Chinese empire and all of them. So up until now, we are sitting on the ruins or the Fountainhead epoch between 600 to 300 BCE, which is the foundation or the fountainhead where all of us are.
Quite interesting. And also, the discovery of a climate change as a surprising thread linking numeric historical incidents is very intriguing. So, could you share the investigative process that led you to this revelation? And what insights did you gain from this discovery?
Again, I have described at least about the climate change a couple of times now. What really led us to it is completely another thread altogether. For example, we were studying about Silk Road. We were mapping, incidentally, what was the progress, rise and fall of the Silk Road. So as we are studying Silk Road, we kind of figured out that it's kind of the foundations of the Silk Road, at least in concept, was laid by the Han Empire in China. It was around 200 BC kind of a thing. And at that particular point of time, quite a few at the same time, in the time span of about 500 years, right? So in Rome, there was a Roman Empire which was coming up. In India, there was a Gupta Empire which rose to the pinnacle. So there were multiple empires which were rising to the pinnacle at the same point of time. And then the Silk Road fall. Again, the Silk Road rises. Again, the Silk Road falls. Right? So we started studying about why the Silk Road is falling and why the empires are falling. And we found that there were climate disruptions. We studied the climate disruptions and very intriguing things start coming out. Say, for example, in the Roman Empire at that point of time, the temperatures were 2 degrees higher than even which we are having right now. We complain that the temperatures are the highest at this point of time. The Roman temperatures which they recorded were 2 degrees even higher than right now. And you know what they thought? They again thought that it is because they are building too many palaces and building too many temples. So there are a lot of man-made activities over there. So this is resulting in an increase in temperature. Or in the case of a Mongol empire, again, you see the temperatures rising, and they kind of blamed it on the Mongoloid Khans, saying that they are putting it onto fire. Too many cities, they plunder cities and put them onto fire. That's the reason for the increase in temperatures. So Silk Road was one of the things. Then we looked at Fountainhead epoch. We again saw the similar kind of patterns. Then incidentally, we came to a topic which was very closely, which I was trying to monitor, which is Mahabharata. A lot of people think that Mahabharata is an epic, it is a story and all those things. So I went back and figured out that some of the historians say that no, it is not. It is not just an epic, but it's a part of the history. And if it is a part of the history, then there should be historical time to it.
Yeah.
And depending upon whether it is you are a religious priest or whether it is you are a historian or whether you're an archaeologist, people put the timeline between, say, 3000 BCE to 500 CE. About 3,500 years is the span which they say. And we figured out, and through the course of the book, we are figuring out systematically, logically, using data tools, that this is exactly the time period when Mahabharata would have happened. And incidentally, there is also a climate change angle as far as Mahabharata is concerned. It's bizarre, but you see things rising and falling, and then you are able to fit it back. And I would delve into Mahabharata at some point of time, but it is extremely interesting. I'll probably leave you with a thought that I have a quick question towards you. In any war, will typically be the commander in chief of an army?
As in a person or type of a person?
Type of a person.
Who is very spontaneous.
Who's spontaneous, maximum skills, who's the able general, who's the able soldier, he would be the one.
Yeah.
And Mahabharata was fought between two parties. Do you remember who those two parties?
Pandavas and Kauravas.
The Kuru dynasty and the Pandavas.
Right.
In the case of the Kauravas, the most able man was chosen as the commander-in-chief, who was Bhishma. He was the most experienced, most valiant, the best. In the case of Pandavas, whom do you think, even peripherally, if you know the story, whom do you think should have been the commander-in-chief?
I think Arjuna.
Arjuna should have been. Even my bet is on Arjuna, in fact.
Yeah.
Actually, my bet was Arjuna, because Arjuna is the most valiant, superb, and Dronacharya says that he is the best student which I've got. He can just shoot the arrow. That's what we have learned, right?
Yeah.
But it was not Arjuna. It was somebody called Drishtidyumna, an obscure, not so great warrior, not even a core Pandava.
Yeah.
And therein hangs a tale, a beautiful tale of a mystery, of a secret, which we have never heard or we have never seen in Mahabharata, which was always there, but we did not realize.
Interesting dimension, yeah. I am enjoying this conversation, Sangeeth. A lot of eye-opening perspectives. And it's a kind of reminiscing my childhood when I watched this Mahabharata. Likewise, all the scenes that you have depicted, right? It is getting me into a sensation wherein I'm watching them live. So very well explained, Sangeeth. And now let's talk about the book. Like each paragraph in your book contains some standalone information points, which contributes to the bigger picture overall. So how did you strike a balance between presenting self-contained insights and at the same time maintaining the coherence of the overall narrative?
So see, Zach, my son, he comes from a very diametrically opposite end of the spectrum, right? So yes, he's a student of history, but at the same time, he belongs to the younger generation. And because he belongs to the younger generation, he's got his own perspectives.
Yeah.
So one of the interesting perspective which he came up with is that history books are great, but the problem with history books is that it is too verbose for even people who are interested in history like me, right? It's 1,000 pages, 2,000 pages. Who's got the time to read up all these kind of things, right? I would like to see a gist. I would like to see a book which I can just take it and leave. Right. So a book should read like a Twitter or an Instagram is what he said. So that was how exactly his first couple of books were like, right? So in this book, what we realized is that instead of just writing huge chapters and paragraphs part of it, but is there a way in which we can tell a small tale through each paragraph? Is that possible at all? Is the question which we asked, right? Instead of telling a typical book, what happens is that it tells the entire story in one chapter. And it tells the whole story part of it in the entire book. So the question which we asked ourselves is that can we take up the challenge and tell at least a part of the story in a paragraph itself? So then we started building the book in such a way that there is some kind of an information which you can gain from each paragraph. So for example, it looks like this, right? Each paragraph And in each paragraph, there is a title to it. And the title is, even if you least interested in reading the entire book, you kind of read the paragraph and you get an idea. Right? So, for example, Pax Indica 2, Golden Age under the Guptas. You kind of understand this is what it is talking about. Or the Turkic Khanates rose up alongside the Silk Road. Or in China, rose up the Tang Dynasty. Right? Expansion of the Han Silk Road. So each one of the paragraphs, each one of them have got a header. And that header is self-explanatory.
Yeah.
The paragraph also ends up giving you a good amount of information. Even if you do not read the rest of the chapter, you just read one paragraph, you will get a very good idea about this is what the story of that particular thing is. Of course, we would love everybody to read the entire chapters and the entire book part of it, but it is centered in a standalone fashion. Also, what we have done is that instead of just putting all the boring text which is out there, reams and reams of text, we have put also infographics which are out there. When people just look at the infographics, they kind of get the idea, okay, this is what it is all about, right? So that's how we have approached it.
Nice. And how long did it take for you to write this book?
Zach completed his last book in 2022 in July. That's when his last book was published. But we had actually started working on the book from January 2022. So we started the book in January 2022. Zach typically writes a lot during his vacation time. So March, April, May is when he writes a lot. Right? Because otherwise he has to go to the school. So March, April, he ended up writing a lot. And by December, the book was ready, in fact. The book was ready. And Penguin had already expressed the interest that they would like to go ahead and publish the book. Right? So by manuscript was ready in December, and the publishing process is a fairly long process, right? So it takes about 6 months in terms of the editing, in terms of the proofreading, in terms of the legal checking, and in terms of making the infographics which go inside the book, right? So all those things took another 4 to 5 months or so. So our book, in terms of our writing, exactly 1 year is what we took.
No, got it. And as readers delve into hidden links, what do you hope they will take away from the experience, and how do you envision your work impacting the way people perceive and study about history in the future?
See, as I again mentioned earlier, I'm an amateur in history. I'm a student of history. I enjoy history. I am involved in history, but at the same time, I'm also among the audience of history. And that gives me a great strength because I'm an onlooker, because I'm an audience, I'm neutral. I don't look at it from any particular lens as such. Right? I don't look at it from a philosophical lens or a religious lens or even a geographical lens. The West is bigger than the East, or Greece is the biggest civilization, or India is the biggest civilization. So I don't look at it from any kind of lens. I look at it as an onlooker. I am a very rational data analyst. That's what I am. I look at it data from a very pure data perspective, right? And data do not have any subjectivity. Data does not have any emotions. Right? That's the first thing about it. Right? Data doesn't have any emotions. Right? I look at it from a purely non-emotional perspective. So when I look at it from a non-emotional perspective, what I would love the readers to take away, if that is possible at all, first thing is that there are humongous amount of connections in our world. We're not even realizing there are humongous amount of connections, the connections which are age old. Why we are doing certain things in a certain manner at this particular point of time is because of something else which happened, some trivial thing which really happened ages back. These are very trivial things. Right? For example, right, since we spoke about Mahabharata and the historicity of Mahabharata part of it, right? Can you imagine Mahabharata war really broke out because of an extremely trivial reason, which you might not even imagine, which is about a small child in an ashram not having access to milk. He did not have access to milk, and that spiraled into a bigger problem, which spiraled into a much bigger problem, which spiraled into a humongous problem. That's actually unraveled in Hidden Links again.
Yeah.
Okay? So we are connected to some things which are bizarre, which we do not realize. That's the first thing which I would like people to take away. The second thing, and the most important thing, which I would like people to take away, is that we think human beings are the most important.
Yeah.
The great civilizations, the biggest empires, the stalwart superpowers, right? The biggest, we end up building Burj Khalifa, we end up building whatever, but the Empire State Building, we end up building the pyramids. So we are supreme, we are greater than the elephants and the dinosaurs and anything which lived upon the earth. But probably not. Probably we are just specks in the universe which we are not even understanding. Probably we are overestimating our capabilities. Probably we are overestimating what we are doing. Probably we are overestimating the capabilities which we have. Probably we are overestimating the destruction which we are creating. Probably we are overestimating the productivity which we have. Probably we are overestimating the impact which we have on the universe. Probably we are nothing. Probably we don't count.
Yeah.
But we think we are, right? That's also one of the perspectives that I am trying to put in. Probably we are just those fillers in between those waves which I spoke about, right? Whether it is a climate crisis waves or whether it is the universe moving, we are just a Roman Empire comes up, Indus Valley civilization comes up, and they think that they are great. A Mongol civilization comes up, one of the largest empires the world has ever seen, and one of the biggest contiguous empire in the world. They thought that, whoa, this is the greatest. Then the British Empire comes up. Then you have over here Gupta Empire, you have Mauryan Empire, you have Alexander's empire. Probably these are just...
Got it. Yeah. I think we are overestimating ourselves, and this is a profound conversation, and we have been having an incredible talk so far. It's now time to add some more excitement to the episode. So, Sangeeth, get ready as we dive into a series of intriguing rapid fire questions to spice up the episode further. And if you're ready, let's get started. Okay. Here comes my first bullet out of rapid fire. If you could have one gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it, what would it say?
Nothing matters.
Super. And what is one thing you're really bad at that you wish you were better at?
Spontaneity, quick thinking. Very bad, extremely bad.
I don't think so.
There is I'm just adding on something over there. There is this beautiful saying, the owl of Minerva takes flight at dusk. You end up sleeping over things to get the wisdom. Wisdom is always in hindsight. And for me to come up with something wise, so for me to come up with something which makes sense, I need to sleep over it. I can never come up with something spontaneously.
And can you describe yourself in just one word?
A thinker.
And what is the favorite thing about living in the 21st century?
Discovering connections is much easier.
Next one is, if you could have one superpower, what would it be and why?
Clairvoyance, seeing into the future.
And here comes the last one for the rapid fire. What is one electronic gadget that you would like to see or invent yourself?
So because the superpower which I want to have is clairvoyance, I would like to have a time machine.
And are you going to travel to the past or future first?
Question. I'm planning to travel to the future first because I've got my own, after studying history, I've got my own hypothesis about how the future would be. Like I described earlier, between the climate changes, between the climate crises, there arose superpowers in the world, which have been going on throughout the conversation.
Right.
So they were initially the Old Kingdom and Indus Valley and things like that. In between, and then came in the new Vedic civilization and the Egyptian New Kingdom. And there, in between, there was that the misogyny and feminism got flipped, right? That which
Yeah.
also we described. And then came in the Roman civilization. Then came in the Byzantines. Then came in the Mongols. Then came in the British, right? So waves are going on, and new civilizations, new superpowers, new great empires, everything is rising and falling.
Yeah.
So I've got a very interesting hypothesis itself that at the end of every climate crisis, during the climate crisis, it's very interesting. During the climate crisis, every climate crisis is a perfect storm.
Yeah.
There is a climate crisis. There are famines across the world. There are droughts across the world. There are wars. There are migrations, and there are pandemics. Every single climate crisis has got a pandemic at the center of it.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Whether it was Justinian's plague, Antonine plague, the Black Death, the Spanish flu, every single one has got a pandemic. Now, I feel this is again a climate crisis. You have got a pandemic at the center of it.
Yeah.
You've got wars and migrations and all those things which are happening.
Yes. Mm.
Now, one more thing have to happen for the perfect storm to culminate,
Mm-hmm.
which is a fall of a superpower. So I leave you with that, saying that this is why I would like to have a future going time machine first rather than going back.
Makes sense. Got it. And this has been great rapid fire again. And let's flip back to the mainstream. Finally, how was your collaborative journey with your son Zach? And in fact, how it shaped your understanding of history? And what other collaborative projects do you foresee in the future? What's in the store from you both?
So for me, it was extremely exciting for me because I got to learn a subject which otherwise I'm not an expert on. I got to apply certain tools which I am an expert on, right? So I applied certain tools onto a subject which otherwise I was not an expert on. I learned from him, or I continue learning from him new lessons, part of it, right? So I think that should be the way when I approach a new subject. I should approach a new subject with humility more than arrogance, right?
Yeah.
I might have my own experience in something else, but when I come to a new one, I should approach it with the humility, with all the humility which I can have. So I feel that's the attitude which I'm having at this point of time as far as the subject is concerned. I'm hoping that I've not been arrogant as far as the subject is concerned, or some of the hypotheses which I've come up with. I hope that I've not been too brash or arrogant in terms of dealing with the subject. As far as future collaborations, Zach is excited about his own world. He's got his own ideas about the next book which he would like to write. I've got my own idea about another book which I would like to write. Whether we write it together or not, it depends.
Mm-hmm.
It depends upon whether both of our twine ends up meeting. That depends. But at some point of time, probably yes. Why not?
So here is a follow-up question. When did Zach's flair for writing start? At what age?
5. Right, 5 years, because there is a reason for that. His handwriting was extremely bad.
Mm-hmm.
His handwriting was pathetic. So his teachers started pulling him up, saying that your handwriting is not good. You need to improve your handwriting. So why don't you start writing a page every day? So he started writing a page every day, and that one page became 10 pages, 100 pages, and he wanted to write something about the things which he liked. So he started writing about history. He wrote close to about 300 essays on history, right?
Wow.
And which got converted into the first 2 books part of it. So that's the story of that.
Super. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. And finally, before I let you go, please share how has been your experience being hosted on our platform, The Guiding Voice.
It cannot be more fabulous than this, Naveen. It cannot be more fabulous than this. I love the insightful questions which you asked. And most importantly, you had the patience to listen out, right? So history is what we are narrating in history. On one part of it is a series of threads which we are talking about, with connections in Fountainhead epoch, or a climate change, or a fall of empires, or religions, and all those things. So it's multiple threads and multiple things which can happen, confusing threads part of it.
Yeah.
And the second part of it is that a lot of it has got a leap of faith.
Right.
Just because there was a climate crisis at some point of time, there is some other point of time, there is another climate crisis. It doesn't mean that they are all connected. It doesn't mean that it's called in planning, sorry, you call it as a false causation. There is no cause really, right? But you are deriving a false causation out of it. Right? It's like the sorry, the newspaper readership is going up, the accidents are also going up, and then suddenly somebody looks at the paper and says that, oh, the accidents are going up, newspaper reading is also going up, so anybody who reads the newspaper has got a higher chance of getting into an accident. That's a false causation. Right? So in some cases, I'm assuming and I'm hoping that we have not been arrogant in terms of coming up with hypotheses, challenging the things which are there. Right? Including, like I said, that in terms of the women empowerment, it has been there. It has been there. People can see it in terms of what really happened, right? The data is there, but we just came up with a hypothesis, with a audacious hypothesis, and said that this is the reason how for the first time in the world the seeds of misogyny was sowed in the world because of this particular climate crisis and this particular migration. This is the migration. This is that pinpoint, and saying that this is the particular migration, this is the particular incident when the world flipped into a misogynic world. Or for that matter, the Mahabharata, which I spoke to you about. There are deep experts who are out there who have studied the subject for decades, part of it. And then here is somebody who's coming up and making an audacious claim. So that's why I'm also hoping that our claims have not been audacious. Our readers would be magnanimous enough to give us this one. But as far as you are concerned, you've been most magnanimous too, in terms of listening to us and in terms of encouraging us. Thank you.
And thank you so much. This episode is definitely going to help my wife and also my nephew. They both are extremely interested in history. I think it will be one of the best episodes for them from my platform. And thank you for being part of this journey. And on this occasion, I'd also like Vidyadhar Prabhudeshai for connecting me with you. And Vidyadhar, thank you so much. And Sangeeth, it's been a pleasure talking to you. And as I said, thank you so much for all the wonderful insights and sharing and spending your valuable time with our audience. And really appreciate it and looking forward for many more conversations in future.
Thank you very much, Naveen. I enjoyed the conversation, and I hope that our audience would end up going ahead and picking up the book from Amazon or any one of the bigger bookshops, or bigger, smaller, any bookshop which you have. But please do pick up the copy, and I hope that you would thoroughly enjoy the new perspectives which we are bringing forth in this new book. Thank you.
So definitely, audience, you'll find the link to the book in the show notes, both on Amazon and Flipkart. Please feel free to grab a copy and also share your feedback. Okay, you can share it with Sangeeth, and in fact, you can connect with Sangeeth. His LinkedIn profile will also be published in the show notes as well as the episode description. So yeah, Sangeeth and Zach, wish you all the best, and I'm sure it will become a bestseller. By looking at the vibes, I think there are a lot of positive vibes, and based on the conversation, based on the insights that I myself have acquired in the last hour or so conversation itself, I can think what's there in the book totally. So thank you so much once again.
Thank you again, Naveen. Thank you.
Folks, that brings us to the, before we get into the exciting trivia section, here is a small request for you. In case if you haven't already subscribed to us, we kindly invite you to subscribe to our podcast from wherever you have tuned in from. Because by subscribing, you will stay updated with our latest episode and ensuring that you never miss out on the valuable content. And if I've enjoyed the conversation and found it beneficial, it would be immensely grateful if you could share it with at least 3 of your friends or colleagues or family members who can benefit from the guiding voice. So let us spread the knowledge and empower others to learn and grow just like you. And your support means the world to us. And not only Will your friends gain new insights, but we'll also gain new subscribers, allowing us to continue producing valuable content for you and our growing community. Thank you so much in advance for your support, and let's embark on this journey of knowledge together. So, today we had an exciting conversation about the hidden links with, among the different aspects of the history. And today's trivia is also about interconnectedness of civilizations and the lasting influences of empires and the profound impact of health crisis on human history. In fact, Sangeeth has already covered a few aspects of the Silk Road and the impact of pandemics. So, how these different activities in the history or historical events are going to add depth and relevance, right? So, here are a few facts which add to the theme that was shared by Sangeeth: hidden links and how random historical events shaped our world. That is the book title as well. So, first fact about Silk Road extending to what Sangeeth has already shared. This ancient network of trade routes played a crucial role in connecting the East and West because it facilitated the exchange of goods, culture, and ideas between civilizations like China, India, Persia, and Rome. And the second one is about the Roman Empire, which is one of the most influential empires in history. And it left a lasting legacy in areas like governance, engineering, and law, and with some of its contributions still shaping the modern society. And the last one is the impact of pandemics. Again, throughout the history, pandemics like the Black Death and the Spanish flu have reshaped societies and led to significant changes in the public health practices. Right now, if you look at any shopping mall, any major hospital, anywhere you go, we are seeing that the sanitizers are placed. So, likewise, a lot of health practices will have been changing throughout the pandemics. And COVID-19 is a great example, right? Likewise, if you are aware of any historical facts and also any information that supplements to what Sangeeth has already covered, request you to share them in the form of YouTube comments, or if you have found this episode on social media, feel free to comment there. And that's a wrap for today's episode. And we sincerely appreciate you taking time to tune in and being part of the incredible community. And we would love to hear from you because your feedback and ideas means a lot to us. And do not hesitate to share your topic recommendations as well as suggestions for guest speakers through our vibrant social media channels, or you can also drop us an email at theguidingvoiceforyou@gmail.com, because together we can create content that truly resonates with you. And I'm your host, Naveen Samala, a dedicated professional and an insatiable learner. My mission is to make the world a better place through meaningful conversations that have a lasting impact on your life and also your career. So, folks, stay connected with us as we continue this enlightening journey together. And until we meet again, take care, stay inspired. Remember, the best is yet to come. Bye for now. See you all in the next episode with another wonderful guest.